Hi, and welcome to our video. Today we're going to talk about Nightreign and what it means for our game and for the industry and the community. As we were doing research for co-op games, we first look into Elden Ring because of Let Me Soloer and how it blew up with the community, creating exciting moments. Even when we're looking at games like Deep Rock Galactic and other games like Risk of Rain 2, we realized that a lot of players were looking for positive experience in co-op PvE. Also, we noticed that the most popular Elden Ring mode was the seamless co-op mode.
We were thinking about how do we create an open map with exploration and all that in a PvE game, so in a co-op action game.
And of course, when Helldivers 2 popped up, it really confirmed for us that this trend was growing and that the community was really looking for this type of games.
So already when we saw that game, we were like, oh my god, okay, they are doing they are very close. They're trying to tackle the same thing. At the time we were looking at something interesting. We were looking at PUBG and Battle Royale in general because the maps are really large. And you know, when you design open world games, you always have this challenge. The larger the map, the more content you need to put in the map. And it's a lot of work.
So the Dark Souls franchise that grew into Elden Ring is very interesting for us and for the industry because if you look back in the early days, in the 1980s, games were very hard. Probably one aspect because the industry was driven by arcade games. Now, when we joined Ubisoft in the 2000s, it was a big shift in the industry. And the mantra that we had at Ubisoft was that as many players as possible should be able to finish the games, which for me was a bit of a departure because back when I started, to finish a game was a badge of honor. As we were working on all these games at Ubisoft, trying to make sure that all games could see all the content that we put in the games, there was a division in Ubisoft which was called the editorial marketing, and they would come up with reports on that obscure game, Dark Souls, with limited budget but good success and very, very different direction than the rest of the industry was doing. What's interesting is even with that franchise, first with Dark Souls games, moving into Elden Ring, you could see that even FromSoftware was making effort to attract and satisfy a wider audience.
You can really tell that they've made a lot of effort to make it easier for players to play the game and to defeat challenges, but also they keep pushing the spectrum on the frustration level. So it's not like they just make the game easier, but that's it. They make it also harder, like with the invasions. There's like now random people being able to get in your game. So I always feel like every time they make it easier, they also make it harder. They kind of balance it out this way. And I think Elden Ring Nightreign is kind of the most open. I think like the movement is a lot freer. The pace of the combat is a lot faster. You get overpowered very quickly in some sessions, some runs. It's not as difficult as it used to be.
And so that's interesting for us to see that at the same time, FromSoftware differentiated themselves from the industry, but they're also looking now that they're established in their IP and franchise, they're also going again in the same vein, which for us is also similar because at the time where we're designing Belong, we're looking at the fact that it was kind of like tapering off of all of the season passes and all of these mechanics that forced players to be grinding the game over and over. The tapering off also of esports that was requiring players to be very, very competitive, like MOBAs, forcing players to grind. And now players want a more relaxed experience. And so we see Nightreign being another data point of that trend being being interesting for players. When the announcement was made, of course, with any FromSoftware game these days, the hype was real and there was a lot of excitement. But to be honest, we could see that after the initial announcement, okay, that's a new game, that's a new Elden Ring game, then it kind of tapered off a bit because it really quickly looked like a different experience.
My first surprise was that, oh, they are pushing a multiplayer game. I think FromSoft has not been big into multiplayer. Like, even if with Elden Ring, the co-op mode is like the number one mode, it was surprising for FromSoft to really jump into multiplayer like that. And I think it's the reception, like Alex said, is like it wasn't a home run. It was risky. They took some risk. A lot of people just wanted another Elden Ring. The second thing that's kind of surprising is the limitation of single or three-player co-op. So that's something that doesn't work well, because if you look at the co-op games, a lot of the players, they play two players. And sometimes they play one until one joins and they play two players. So you switch from one to two very smoothly. Three is a bit harder to schedule. So that's kind of a surprise decision. We think for Belong, for example, we want to allow to scale from 1 to 8. And the way we scale is like 1, we think there's going to be people that want to solo the game or solo missions. 2 is usually a group of friends. 3, you add another friend that's available. Oh, we're lucky. And then the rest, how to get to 8, is usually you meet other groups of players that are 1, 2, or 3, and you compose like a temporary group of up to 8 players to defeat to complete the map, to defeat the boss.
Of course, Nightreign is a part of the Elden Ring franchise, which was Game of the Year, I think 2 years ago. FromSoftware is one of the top developers these days, so we can expect a lot of attention. We can expect a lot of people looking at that game. And we think that's great because it might actually increase the number of people that are exposed to that co-op experience that we think is going to be a growing trend. There's a couple challenges, though, that we think the game is going to face, because a couple of the core elements of the franchise are twisted.
The first thing they made that was surprising is you don't really build your own character. You're not a tarnished, you're playing a hero. So they went with this hero-based model, which is great for accessibility. Again, I think when you have a hero, you learn your hero, you unlock things in a linear way, you don't have too many decisions to make. But the audience of Elden Ring was kind of disappointed. They didn't understand, like, there's super deep progression in Elden Ring. How do you go from that to hero-based? With Belong, we went the other way. We decided early on that we were going to do RPG and you create your own character. We felt like there's already too many hero-based games.
It doesn't seem that there's the same amount of depth in customization. Your character scales on a path. You cannot build your character the same way. They are not differentiated, so it's going to be harder to see a prominent figure like let me solo her, because the aesthetic of the character are going to be set, which is a bit of a problem for co-op games where you want players to be able to express their identities.
So to go back to the Battle Royale idea, is they really literally took the Battle Royale rain, storm mechanic to concentrate players into the same location. And that works well for a PvP game, because in a PvP game, if players want to avoid each other, they can do that forever. I remember many competitive 1v1 game with friends where you just like avoid each other. You know exactly where the other player is. You can hear where they are, so you try to avoid them. And I think Battle Royale, that's not the goal. So they created this rain mechanic, the storm mechanic. And so for us, it was like, yeah, that's fair for a PvP game, but for a PvE game, we don't necessarily need to create that thing to group players. So that was surprising. Knowing them, I think they've probably tried other ways, but yeah, we found that. So that's another big difference between Belong and Nightreign is that we don't rely on the rain mechanic, and we incentivize players to be together and join. I'm curious to see how they run this game live. Like, are they adding new classes? Are they adding new maps? Are they shifting the game system, the game rules, and the game mode to keep it interesting and refreshing? And then after that is the question is like how much content is there for hardcore players to clear? So we've only seen one map so far. I don't know how many maps there are. What's the end game like? Like, how do you keep playing after you beat all the maps, and what is there to see? Like, that's a big question.
One of the core thing that we're excited about is the fact that this is a short session game, which is what we think is really helping for co-op sessions. You don't have to commit for 3 hours of time. You can play 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and if you enjoy it, you can play multiple rounds of it. So for us, that's pretty exciting. The combat is way more exciting, way more fast, way more responsive, less tanky, less slow than what the regular Dark Souls or Elden Ring games were. Movement is way more spectacular. You have a lot of traversal abilities, kind of like parkour, and not only it makes it for a way more empowering experience for the players, but also it makes exploration way more exciting for players. So this is something that we enjoy a lot, and we also incorporated in our own game. But overall, I feel that it's going to attract a lot of new players. It might be a good way for FromSoftware, if they're flexible enough, to be reactive and say, okay, we have that data, we have that influx of new players, we see how they act. If they're reactive to the feedback of the community and they put effort to develop their brand and skew their brand, it might become a big success. It might help them either skew that game towards success or maybe inform what they're going to do for the next product. A lot of the differences that they added from Elden Ring is quite in line with what we're doing with Belong. And so on one end, it's a bit of a challenge because you're always a bit scared that, oh, they're taking all of our ideas. Well, of course, they're not taking all of our ideas, but on the other end, it's exciting because it shows us that, yes, we're going in the right direction. You know, we're in good company with the guys from FromSoftware.
I've played the network test, and I really found that it had a lot of potential. Not all my games were enjoyable. Like, I would say, many games I got destroyed like by the first boss and by random events. So I felt like there might be a bit of frustration, but if you find a good group, actually it works pretty well. You can go pretty far, and getting to the final boss is really satisfying.
I feel that the core audience, the core fans of the franchise might be a bit let down because it's a very different game that is missing core DNA elements from the franchise. So it might be a challenge to maintain popularity of that game in the long term. They have an opportunity, if they're reactive for that game, they will bring more eyeballs to that co-op experience, which is great for them and also for us. And even if they struggle to maintain long-term engagement for that game, we feel that it's going to be great for them if they want to apply these lessons and maybe skew internally the discussion towards a next game, because it's always hard when you have an established franchise and they've been so successful with the Souls and the Elden Ring franchise. We know from experience that when you're very successful in one franchise, your whole company becomes specialized, and it becomes difficult to pivot to make new games. So if anything, we hope that it's going to be a good opportunity for them to reinvent themselves and to embrace and help shape the new trend of co-op games. So thank you for joining us in this discussion about Elden Ring Nightreign. We're very excited for the launch at the end of the month. Let us know what you think about the game, what you think co-op games could do better to make you enjoy the game with your friends. Also join us on Discord and to discuss this evolution of the market. We're going to be playing the game, and we're going to be also discussing the game probably a couple of weeks after it release to compare our notes with what we thought before, and also to debrief with you what is the good direction for these type of games. Thank you very much for joining, and talk to you soon.